Okay, but it's looking at the
live.
drums. Hi. Well, I really like that we didn't know we were going because we weren't even sure how we were going to start this thing.
Hi,
and
everyone.
my suggestion is right here you have the extroverts,
Yes.
and on the outer edges you have the introverts. So I said, come on, let's dance, and the see what's happening?
We're still-
The
They're
introverts
stiffening.
are like, they just moved. They moved on camera.
We're just
And
gonna smile and
we're-
nod.
I know, exactly. So we weren't quite sure if we should come in with a dance. That seemed like so Ellen. And so, we didn't want to steal her thunder. And then I said, well, let's play a song. And then they said, we have to have a song that is not copyrighted. And so
We can
that
put it on
became
YouTube.
complicated. That meant I would have to make a song really quickly. But this is Girl Talk.
That's right.
It's Girl Talk with Lenya, Lindsay, and Janae. And we have our guest today, Michelle Schroff, whom we adore.
Yes.
And she's been on the podcast before, our All the Things podcast. She and her husband, they have the gift of giving. And so that was a great podcast. You should check it out on All the Things. And it was covering the gift of giving. And so during the coronavirus and kind of getting our rhythm, which you can see we don't have our rhythm. We're
learning
trying.
it.
We have our rhythm.
Yes, I've got rhythm.
You guys are
I've got. But so anyway, as we're trying to reestablish that, we realized we could do some virtual things for Sheology.
That's right.
And so anyway, we have been given graciously by Skip Heitzig Table Talk on Tuesdays has turned into Girl Talk. So Skip and I will still be here on Thursday with our shenanigans. But today you have us. And it was really kind of neat. As a steering committee, we were having conversations. What could we be doing for women? And we decided there were certain topics that really should be discussed
Right.
during this time.
That's right.
And so I love Michelle. I said, all right, ladies, pray, write an article, give me your opinions. And she comes out of the stall with comparison. She said, it has been so hard. I'll give you, what
Yes.
did you say?
Well, it's comparison. I think we often look at it just as being a thief of joy, and in reality, comparison can be a good thing. It can be something that we strive to be better. It can be
Motivate.
something, yes, it can motivate us. It can actually push us, and hopefully it enables us to pray for others and lift others up that may be struggling or that may be doing really well and rejoice when they rejoice.
Yeah.
But right now I'm really envying your eye makeup. And I want to know.
We'll do a tutorial after this.
I'm coveting your eye makeup, and I'm wanting to know why
Girl.
you and Janae have a tan and I don't. So already I'm comparing myself.
I think the tan is genetic, and the eye makeup, girl, will get together.
So we wanted to jump in on this thought of comparison. And, it's a double-edged sword, right? And so Lindsay is our hostess with the mostest. And she's going to navigate us through this conversation. We are live on Facebook and on Instagram and on Calvary nm.church.
Live.calvary
Hi, guys.
And then the episode
We love your waves.
the episode will also be on the All the Things podcast as well, so the audio will be recorded for that. So you can follow us on allthethings.podcast on Instagram. But yeah, we wanted to jump in to comparison because like Michelle said, it is something that a lot of women struggle with. And in
Dare
isolation.
I say every woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the thick of isolation, I think there are a lot of people who are struggling with comparing to other families who are handling things better, or who just their marriage seems like it's blossoming and theirs is not, whatever it might be. And I think what we have to realize is so often when we spend, just to use the yard analogy, when we spend so much time looking over at someone else's
The backyard
yard,
fence.
we lose sight of the blessings God has given to us. But the truth is that no matter how long we spend looking at someone else's yard while ours gets withered and dry because we're not nurturing it or fostering it, their grass stays green, right? Because they're nurturing and fostering their own lives. But with our lives, we have to put that effort in. And so while we can sit and look at their marriage or their body or their success and wish we had that, it doesn't stop them from having it, but it gives us the ability to step back and say, that's awesome. I want to rejoice as they rejoice and be excited for them and their accomplishments. But I also want to come to a place where I'm going to nurture the blessings God has given to me.
And in truth, I think comparison can lead to envy, which
That's
can
right.
lead to covetousness.
That's right, which
Yes.
is straight sinful.
And
Yeah.
you got keeping up with the Kardashians. It used to be you
Right.
had to keep up with the Joneses.
Right,
Now
now
you
it's
have to keep
Kardashians.
up with the Kardashians. And nobody's going to get a booty like that.
That's right.
There's just, it's
Not
right.
real.
it can't be. It
Right.
cannot be real.
This is true, but they do have workouts.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
and that's, for me, I don't have a problem with copying other people. I mean, I watched, this morning you had your press-on nail thing. I was like, I have some of those. I'm totally going to do it today, and I'm going to give Lindsay credit for it because Lindsay had a great idea, and I'm not going to go, I
you're
wish
a
I
cheerleader
had
of
that.
women. Yeah.
Well, I think it's so important that as women, we can either look at things and think, oh, I'm not that great. Well, that greatness has nothing to do with wanting to be like someone or to be better. It just
Right.
has to do with, hey, why not be the best version of Michelle? And if that means I wear the same nails as you, great.
Yeah.
And
That's how
25
trends start.
million other people.
We are going to start some biblical trends.
That's right.
Just watch it take flight.
That's right. That's right.
I think also in comparison, we compare our weakness to someone's strength.
Yeah.
That's right.
Like Janae is a mighty runner. And so Janae, when I run with her, she's my coach and she's like pushing me from behind, get it. Or, pushing my pace.
Yeah.
And so I could say, gosh, I wish I had strong runner legs like Janae does. Or I can be grateful for her strength.
That's right.
And not compare it and say, I have strength. I have domestic skills.
Yeah.
I really love to
Yes.
cook.
Yeah.
And so if you're, comparing the wrong thing.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Just
That's right.
let people be who they are.
Yeah,
That's right.
I love that. Well, and I want to get a little raw because I know that as we sit up here and speak about this, it's not that we have fully overcome it, but by the grace
Right.
of God,
That's
there have
right.
been lessons that we've learned about it. But I think it's important to speak from a place of conviction when we share about things like this. And so I would just like to hear from you ladies, maybe an area that you have struggled or you're currently struggling with comparison. What is something that maybe you battle with personally?
And I want you and the audience to know that you
Yes.
can let us know
Yeah.
what you battle with. We'd
Yeah.
love to
That's
hear
right.
from you. And Janae is going to be watching Facebook and Instagram. So, and if you have questions, you're welcome to join in.
Yes.
So, since we brought you on, you want to?
In the article that I wrote, right now I'm in the midst of writing a book, and there's a particular woman that I admire, but there are times that I'm like, oh my goodness gracious, she's got a bunch of kids and she's, spitting out 25 books a year. I'm like, how is she doing that?
Nannies.
Right? And that's what I said. That's exactly what I
reality
said.
of
I'm
it.
like, oh, she has a nanny. That's why. But then I'm like, well, so I just really made an excuse for myself in that
To not
comparison.
achieve.
Exactly, to not achieve, instead of going, you know what, I need to be following this girl and seeing how she does it so I can duplicate it. She's not, copyrighted and it doesn't want to share how she's doing it. So I follow her very closely. And I'm like, I'm going to get involved in writers' workshops. I'm going to be the best that I can be because she's done it and she's gone before me. So
someone you compare
So learning,
yourself to
yeah.
Right.
could become a mentor. Almost.
Exactly.
You're like, instead of that, why don't I, use this as a bonus?
That's
like,
right. That's right. It's
Janae
flipping the
will say,
script.
well, if you want to get faster, you're going to have to do some track work. And
That's
I'm like,
right.
I don't want to get faster.
yeah.
I'm good where Changed my mind.
I'm comfy. And that's okay too.
Yeah.
And that's where I think we feel like we have to be like someone else. It's okay that Janae is a runner, and how great that you guys have a relationship. You're her mother-in-law. How wonderful that she's a runner and you're learning from her.
Yeah.
How humbling to be able to say, oh my goodness gracious, my mother-in-law, my daughter-in-law is training me. How awesome is that?
Yeah.
That's so great.
Yeah.
So, Janae, what things can make you compare?
Oh man, the gamut, right? I'm a woman, just like the rest
Right.
of you guys up here and those probably tuning in. I think you can start anywhere, but I think I've always struggled and continue to struggle with body image. It's always been something that I wanted to have a fit body. I wanted to be strong. I wanted to be capable of doing what other girls do, or not just even ability, but just look a certain way. I mean, let's be real.
I
Lenya.
compare thigh gap.
Yeah.
Right?
Thigh gap.
Yeah.
Like I've never had it my whole
But
life.
can I
Me
say
neither.
in school, now my niece, who is very young, is getting made fun of for having a thigh gap because now they want girls to be thicker.
Fuller, yeah.
But that's the thing, is that the expectations of society will always be ever changing.
That's right.
And
Right.
it's impossible
That's
to
right.
keep up.
Like Twiggy to the Kardashians, to
Yeah.
the J-Lo,
Right.
to
That's
the
right.
whatever,
Yeah. That's
right.
that you don't know who's the latest you're supposed to aspire
Right.
to.
And your body shape, like you can't change that. Yes, you can tone it. Yes, you can get stronger, but God created you with that shape, those proportions.
That's right.
And so you can't really change them. I'm never going to have the twig legs, you know? You said you always compare thigh gap. Absolutely. I will always have a muscular build. That will always be part of my genetics, and I have to choose to embrace that.
Yeah.
You know, and enjoy it almost, rather than sitting there going, I want that. It's like, that's unaccomplishable. So how, like it is, it's still
well, it
your
leads
joy.
to the Creator. If we are fearfully and wonderfully
That's right.
made,
Yeah.
and God knew us in our mother's womb, and He knit us together intricately, then He had a specific plan for your body type,
That's right.
yours, mine. You know, I do this joke. If I was born in Russia, they wouldn't be using me for anything. It's like, okay, she can't do gymnastics. She's not going to be, you know what I mean? If they were like, oh, this girl's going to be a gymnast, and then they work with you your whole life because you genetically were predisposed to do that. But God has fearfully and wonderfully
That's right.
created us. And if I could use my brain in my mouth, I think that's the best effect that I can be for the kingdom of God. It's never going to be my body. It's going to be some other part of me.
Right.
And yet God has used that in you.
That's
and
right.
that's what I see, is God has used that in you because you have acknowledged that for yourself. This is my gifting. This is
Right.
my strength. Lord, use me. And you've made yourself available. You've been obedient to that. And that is such a huge part of that, because like you're saying, I go running. Like I use my body. It's strong. And there are a lot of people who envy that.
Right.
But you run, and you can run. And so I think so much of it is utilizing the gifts that God has given you or the body, the creation, every part of it, your DNA, to honor and glorify Him. So what about you, Lenya? Aside from the
besides
thigh gap.
thigh gap. I think probably I'm the oldest one here. I represent this demographic on the panel today.
Which is awesome.
And so
Yeah.
that's
Right.
fine.
Yeah.
But as you age, you start envying the young or comparing yourself to the young. You're like, oh, I remember when I had collagen. Or I
true. I
remember
feel
when
that.
I used to be able to do this or that or the other thing.
Yeah.
And so, and then maybe more specifically in ministry, as you start aging, you're like, wow, look at those young gals that are going, and God's just using them. And so, again, I don't turn it into envy.
Yeah.
I let the younger people teach me. I'm like, I want to stay current. I want to stay relevant. I want to minister to every generation. That's why you guys are here.
I'm not far behind you, honey.
But, so anyway, there can be times that you're just watching and
Right.
you're like, oh, you know, did I age out? Like, do I have to, you know,
Oh,
hang
yeah.
up my cleats?
Yeah. Well, and that's what's interesting. Actually, I had this conversation with my daughters, because I have 6 daughters, and we talk about, with women, we do. There is something about, in the acting world, men, they grow fine as wine, you know.
But by
and
30,
salt
you're
and pepper
out.
hair is great
Seriously,
for a guy.
right?
Yeah.
And for women, and that's something that I've seen kind of, you know, it's unfair, totally.
It's very interesting. We've actually had this conversation multiple times with my husband and I, because with his career, I tell him the older you get, the more experienced
That's
you
right.
are. You're seen in a different light
More
as just
trusted.
this experienced, trusted, handsome man. And as women, for whatever reason, society has said once you turn 30 and above, we start turning our head. But I think that's a lie. And so that's
It
what I
is.
love that you
Yeah.
do
It
this.
is.
Because the ministry, obviously, Lenya, it's an example that the ministry you still have and the opportunities you still have and your willingness to learn and to grow. And that's the thing, is there's so many lies. And Satan comes to steal, kill, and destroy.
That's right.
He
That's
wants to
right.
destroy our faith, ruin our relationships,
Amen.
because when we're envious of our friends, we wither away
That's
from
right.
them.
Right.
We don't nurture them. and to kill our faith, because when we're thinking God is withholding from us, we then feel as if he's abandoned us.
That's right.
Which is a lie, because just because he isn't giving you what you feel you deserve or what you want does not mean he's not giving you what
you
is
need.
best for you.
That's right.
Have our listeners shared anything so far?
They're saying hi. And
Hey, y'all.
Hey, y'all. We're glad you're here. We do want you guys to tune in, though,
Hi,
or
Instagram.
chime in,
Ask
I guess
us
I should say.
questions.
Yeah, if you have questions or a comment or you agree with something.
You might have to flip that screen. It does get stuck.
Okay.
I
yeah,
have
feel
noticed
free.
in the
Let
past.
us know. Share your
So anyway,
thoughts.
the other thought about that is gratitude is the direct path out of comparison.
That's right.
Yeah.
So when you start saying, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that, I'm grateful this, that's my direction to know that if I have this attitude of gratitude about what God has done in me,
Yeah.
and then I admire
Right.
what's happening in other people. I can
Right.
go, look what God did with that. Look
right.
what
That's
he.
right.
So I mean, I think gratitude's
That's
the
right.
path out.
That's right. And I think for me at least, with a lot of daughters, I want to raise girls that are cheerleaders, that come alongside of each other and alongside of other women.
Yes.
And permeate that. Hopefully we'll raising up a generation of women that don't feel like they have to compare themselves or oh my goodness, she has those shoes, I have to get them, but then when she notices, I have to pretend like I didn't know that she had those shoes. I'm sorry, girlfriend.
those shoes?
I got those shoes because you had those shoes. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, right.
If I can pump someone else up that they have pushed me in my fashion sense or whatever it may be, I'm okay with that.
And these aren't just words from Michelle, because I have experienced this firsthand with you, that you are a championer of women.
Yes.
And so I admire that so much. And I think
Especially
that
with
is
the girls, too.
yes, I think that is one of the solutions, is coming alongside and saying, I will, like I said, rejoice with those who
That's
rejoice.
right.
When we withhold that praise or that encouragement or the cheerleader aspect of ourselves, that's something within our own hearts. But if we
Yes.
just fight that temptation to win, we will overcome by the grace of God, because we say, Lord, you made her, you made me, and I am good. I'm good with that, but I can still appreciate what you're doing in her life. So for me, I would say mine is with success. I am an achiever. I love to try new things. I love to just go for it. But when I see women, like you're speaking about the author, who are ahead of me, 10 steps ahead of me, I'm like, Lord, why didn't
When
you give
will
me the
I ever get there?
opportunity
Oh,
to
yeah.
start 10 years ago, when I didn't have
When
any
you were 5,
knowledge.
right?
Right?
She was 5.
10 years ago. I mean, realistically, I was getting out of college. Like, it was so new.
She's so cute.
I wouldn't be 5.
You're so cute.
But
Back when I was in the embryo.
Right? When I was a glimmer in my mother's eye.
Underachieving embryo. That's what I was.
I am 30,
thought I was
I
pretty
will say.
good. I swam fast, y'all. I made it.
First place. Right. So can I say how unrealistic my goals are, though? Because I go there. I'm like, I wish I could have started literally as a teenager to be, I'm like, I could have started Instagram earlier. I could have started Pinterest earlier. I'm behind. And it's this race to keep up until I realize, and this has been such a massive realization for me, that God could snap his fingers and grow my ministry tenfold if he wanted to. He has me where he has me for a purpose. And that kind of dives into our next question.
And we do have some
awesome.
people chiming in, which is great, and I just lost some of them. Come on, open it up. Okay, so where did Sarah's go? I believe that's how you pronunciate it. I am so
Sarah?
bad. Sarah?
S-E?
S-E-R-A.
Yes, I know Sarah.
You know Sarah?
Yes.
Okay, why won't it let me see the comments? Lindsay.
Do it again, Sarah.
Oh, I don't know how to fix it. Here, we'll keep going, and then we'll have Janine search for him.
And tell Sarah to go again.
So in
Go again.
going from that thought, I believe strongly that the righteous jealousy of Jesus is something that's so important for me to focus on, because he is a God who loves us, but he yearns for us to love him first. And a lot of the time, those things that we want, that we say, this will satisfy me, this is going to bring me joy and passion and fulfillment, God is saying, maybe I won't fulfill that now or ever, because I have more in store for you with your relationship with me.
Right.
Because if we got those things, would we need Jesus? Would we want him as badly? So how does your knowledge of Jesus affect the way that you respond to the struggle of comparison? Like who he is.
For me, it's trusting him.
Yeah.
It's trusting him and trusting and knowing that because when you say, he could snap his fingers and grow tenfold, and I think he could snap his fingers and say,
Crush it.
We're done.
Yeah.
And not crush, but redirect.
Yeah, that's true.
And say, you know what, this isn't where I want you.
Yeah.
I want you somewhere else. I want you to sell everything and move to Uganda. And I want you to take that drive and do it there.
It's good.
And for me, it's really and truly daily trusting him. Food, drink, all the good stuff, but trusting him with my success or with my stillness, with the quarantine and everything right now. And it was funny because I was talking to a friend of mine this morning and I was reading a book. It's called Messy Grace. Phenomenal book. And we start messaging each other and they're like, hey, how are you doing? And I said, I'll never post this on social media, but great.
Yeah.
The simplification of everything right now, I'm loving that my husband comes home from work and I may or may not have dinner ready because I'm painting the kitchen.
Yeah.
Whereas this is something I can't do, during
In the
the school
regular
year.
world, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So, just being able to go, Lord, I trust you and I trust where you have me, what you've given me, and what you choose to not give me.
But what makes me sad is the thought that you feel that you can't post it on Instagram because of the way
Because you
our
don't
world
stumble
is,
someone.
Right,
that they cause
right.
others
I
to
know, it's
feel.
like you have to have so many disclaimers,
It was a filter.
asterisks, and
Like, my
the
life's
things
not perfect, but just because
the
I
things
share
that
this.
get likes are, girl,
Yeah.
I've been so depressed
Right,
and blah, blah,
right,
blah.
right.
How many of you feel like that?
Yeah.
And then you get a million responses,
Yeah.
but if you come on and say, today,
I'm happy.
blah, blah, blah,
That's
blah,
right,
blah,
that's
it's like
right.
crickets.
Yeah.
Right.
And so-
or I cleaned my house and I take a picture. It's like, oh, I can't post that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you have no idea. My house has been a disaster for 3 months, you know?
Well, you're painting your kitchen, and I've been updating my kitchen, and I posted something, and I got a couple of people that
You get in
said,
trouble?
take the post down,
'Cause he is
because
a
they
God
said
who
people
loves
will
us.
compare their kitchen with your kitchen. And I
Shame
was
on you,
like,
Leah.
I pulled it down.
Oh, I want to see your kitchen.
I know. and
I'll just
so-
come over.
Who told you to pull it down?
Well, I
we won't
can't
say
say
that.
here.
Sorry.
No, they were very well-meaning
cute.
friends
Yes.
who love
Okay.
me and have my back, and they were
Yeah.
like, I don't want you to be hurt.
Or to come off as bragging.
But it is
Yeah.
true. There is a song that says, promotion doesn't come from the east or the west, but from the Lord.
Lord. Yeah.
So when you talk about it that way, I really do. I say to the Lord, it's your portion is the one that you have selected
That's
for me.
right.
Amen.
He gave the Levites, they got God, right?
Right.
Instead of land. Joseph had land, and
Right.
different
That's so
spots
true.
where God divided up
Yeah.
the promised land. And some might have said, well, I wanted the mountains, I wanted to be coastal, I wanted to whatever, but my lots have fallen on pleasant places.
That's right.
And so I just, I would have loved more kids. Now, I don't want 10.
Are you sure? You wanted 12.
But Nathan, I lost a pregnancy before him and lost pregnancies after him, and we went through infertility.
Yeah.
And so there was maybe a season I really envied or compared that it's just like everybody was getting pregnant and I wasn't. And
Yeah,
then
that's
I just had to say, this is what God has chosen for me.
Yeah.
This is the life He wants me to have. And I know this is a sore point for a lot of people. If you're infertile, if this is something you're struggling with, I believe God can heal you.
That's right.
And God can give you a child, and His timing is perfect. But He may also have other plans for your life. And so that's a discussion between you and God.
Right.
What is this? Is this
That's
what
good.
you are saying
That's
for me?
good.
Is this a promise I need to hold on to? But eventually we have to adapt to the will of God.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. I know a lot of women, it's marriage.
Yes.
It's I want a husband, I want a
Yes.
husband, I want a husband. And
Or even comparing marriages, because that's what Sierra. I didn't get to see
Yeah.
the whole thing, but
Okay.
she did mention
got it.
comparing, relationships, not necessarily envying the husband or the husband that woman has, but the relationship they have.
yeah, the unity itself.
Yes.
Why
yeah.
didn't my husband bring me flowers?
Right.
I posted that Skip made me an omelet on Sunday, and some people are like, I wish my husband made me an omelet. And it's like, stop it.
My girlfriend, her daughter just got a she shed because she has her own
how
business. So her
fun.
husband got her a she shed, and he redid the inside. I mean, I'm like, Clay, I want a she shed.
All right, so explain what a she shed is.
Right?
in case
Because I
if
have
you have no
basically
idea.
a man shed.
A man cave.
For a woman, a man cave, yeah.
Yes.
But for a woman who you can do anything. I mean, if you're a crafter, a scrapbooker, you have the whole
Put it in the
shed.
backyard, a
It's
shed,
your
and you deck it
space.
out with a crystal chandelier and whatever.
Oh, that's cool.
See, I
caves
just
are
want a place
for
that
men.
stays clean.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, it's going to be like a museum.
Smells good.
No children in my she shed.
Right,
My she
ever.
shed.
No
I
moths?
just want to say, can you say she sells? She sells. She has a she shed in her whatever.
Exactly.
Janae, how would you say that your knowledge of Jesus and who he is to you affect the way you view comparison?
Again, I think it comes down to knowing he's made me unique.
Yeah.
You know, and there are so many things that I see because I'm very analytical, and I think I'm probably my worst critic.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so with that, like, so often, and I have an amazing husband who encourages me, but so often I think you don't realize what you feel is weakness or an inadequacy, God uses
So
in
true.
amazing ways. And so when you sit there and you realize, like, it's not my picture perfect of what I desire, but Jesus had a point and a reason for me being this way. And so the realism of who he is and his purpose and reasoning for making me so unique in certain areas, whether it is with depression and anxiety, whether it is having lost a baby, those things that you feel like, well, I didn't have a good enough womb to carry this baby
I know the
to
feeling.
full term or whatever. You have those things and you question yourself and you go, no, Jesus made you this way, and he created
So we
it
can
with-
get real. Janae,
Right.
when they were first married, got pregnant
yeah.
and miscarried, and she retrieved the miscarriage and brought it to my house in a box.
Yeah.
So I mean, if we're getting really real, and then you go, why? You know, why
Yeah.
did that happen? And Nate was out of town or something.
Nate was in Montana.
So Janae
Yeah.
brings it in, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what do I do? And how do you comfort that? I think when you compare yourself to others, I'm going to start crying, so this is real. You guys always know when I start crying. You don't know the price they paid for what they have.
That's right.
That's so true.
And so sometimes you want what someone has, but you don't want to pay the price they paid to get what they have.
Yeah.
Like if you are a runner
real.
and you can run a 6-minute mile, people aren't training out there for that 6-minute mile. They just want to run the 6-minute mile.
right. Right.
Or
So true.
whatever you've gone through in your relationship with your husband. Maybe you came into a relationship with depression, or you came into the relationship in bankruptcy or
Right,
whatever.
right.
And you two have walked through that and learned the lessons so that now God may have made you fruitful after
Right.
bankruptcy.
That's right.
The other person hasn't walked through that.
That's right.
So they don't have the experience or the knowledge because they
trial, yeah.
exactly.
That's right.
They didn't
They
live
haven't
the
walked through that
trial.
valley.
Exactly. So when you compare, you might ask yourself, what did it take for that person
Yes.
to be
and
where
am
they
I
are?
willing am I genuinely willing to push that hard,
through that,
because
yeah. That's
right.
that's where comparison can be positive in the sense of going, okay, she's so hard working, devoted, driven.
Right.
Am I willing to be that driven, that devoted?
That's right.
If I want to accomplish what that person is accomplishing, am I going to put the work in?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's so true.
It's
so
really
true.
good.
So, can we get maybe a little help with the live? Because we're
Yeah,
having
we
trouble
can't
getting
see
the comments.
the comments. If
I know
anyone
we're
knows how to
live.
do
We
that.
want to
Facebook?
hear from you
Facebook.
guys.
Over here, you can read some.
Yes.
Oh,
I
okay.
was waiting for that. Your words have been so powerful in my life, Lenya. Thank you.
Aw.
And then we had somebody asking about raising 2 young girls and how you help them have a positive body image of themselves in today's, I guess, world and the way we live. And I mean, you don't have to teach a girl or a child of any matter, boy or girl, to compare themselves.
Yeah.
That's
right.
natural.
Janae and I are careful around cadence.
Yep.
To not say I'm on a diet or I
Yep.
don't eat that or that's bad for you.
I'm very careful with how, because I am again, my worst critic. I'm careful of saying like, ew, I look ugly, or I feel fat, or using those terms because it's giving them that same vernacular and vocabulary. And I've caught myself where I'm like, oh, I just feel so fat, or I feel so gross, or I feel whatever. And then you'll see your daughter looking in the mirror going, am I fat?
Yeah.
And touching her tummy, or looking at her thighs. Are my thighs too big? And she knows that mommy has talked about her thighs being big, and so it's like, well, do I have big thighs?
Right.
And you're like, no, you're proportionate, you're beautiful and
So
perfect.
first of all, watch what comes out of your
Watch
mouth.
what you
But you
say.
have girls of
Yes.
different
Our-
heights
yes,
and shapes.
I do.
and, yeah.
I do. I have 2 very tall girls, actually 4. My 2 younger girls are
I have
very
10
tall.
kids.
Yeah, I know. Let me think. But 2 of my girls have the same body type as I do. I mean, I'm 5'4". You know, I'm on the curvy side. But our thing in our home is we talk about healthy.
Yes.
You know,
There you go.
you're healthy.
Yeah.
That's what that is the benchmark is healthy. We want to be healthy.
Yeah.
If you're not exercising or you're being lazy, you can't complain about not being healthy. You know, this is something that we need to strive for. We cannot just expect to be healthy. We need to eat healthy. We need to have a healthy lifestyle.
Right.
You know, and sometimes young ladies, when they're, reaching puberty, they get a little, more tired, if you want to call it that. And we have to work through that. We have to walk through that together and encourage, and, they want to eat more sweets, or, hey, let's talk about balancing and we have conversations.
Look,
if
this wasn't a huge issue, I'm going to go into some really dangerous water, okay?
Okay.
So, have you noticed that the mannequins in Target have changed their
Yes.
dress size?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
if comparison wasn't an issue, why did they change the mannequins?
Right.
Well, and
Because
even the posters now,
That's
they're not
right.
airbrushing
Advertising,
the
yeah.
stretch marks, which I appreciate.
Me too.
But I know that when you walk in, especially people who are not that size feel as if, it's very unrealistic sizing
Yes.
as a whole. I mean, it's not
Right.
even real. But yeah, there is that issue. And I agree with the healthy. I think that's a conversation that I have with my boys, but also just within myself. That when I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh my gosh, quarantine, I've gained 10 pounds and I feel it everywhere. I just think, okay, am I really working toward this so that I can be vain and not
right.
fat? Or can I work toward this so that I can take care of my boys and I
right.
can go run outside with them
right.
and I can be healthy and live a long life for
So
them?
Rosalind is saying, I struggle with house envy.
Yeah.
So I find myself sitting on the porch thanking God for what I do have. And
Love
I
it.
love you,
that.
Rosalind, for that.
That's great.
Whatever it is that you wish was different. And I want to applaud you. Oh, gonna cry. Because women, you put pressure on your husbands. And you're telling them they're not enough
That's
if
right.
you don't have the house that you think you deserved, and they're doing everything they can to provide the house that you have. And so it's really important that women, you're careful of the message you're giving your husband.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not going to get in whether you should work, not work. You can have a side hustle. You can do other things to be home and bring an income in. But I applaud you, Rosalind, that be careful the message you're giving your husband.
That's right.
That, I wish I had a different car or whatever else. Again, gratitude is that attitude
right.
that will conquer comparison.
So good. I hear the phrase often, impressing is exhausting, because it is. Daisy just said, I struggle
love
with
this.
being a sweet woman. What you see is what you get.
Daisy.
I love it.
too.
I know.
Daisies are sweet.
I know. I love it.
Oh, Daisy.
I'll let Lenya grab that one.
Well, you know what? I happen to be a woman that has a little bit of gravitas, so I can relate to you as well. But I work on that. That is something I have to work on.
Yeah.
And so, if Skip says, can you do this or that? Instead of me grumbling, I've been working a lot lately of going, absolutely, I would love to, because I can control that. That is something I can work on, and I can adjust. Yes, I'm going to always be robust and funny and matter of fact, but I also can add a little sugar to the pot,
Yeah,
and
and
a
I
little
think-
bit of honey.
Yeah.
So.
That's
First
right.
Corinthians says love is kind,
Yeah.
and God is love. And so
Yeah.
if our heart is to be like Jesus, which is ultimately our goal, is to
right.
love Jesus and to be a good and faithful servant, then we are that love, and love is kind as well. And so I think it's important for us to strive by God's grace and by his strength to live that out. But I want to go back to the house because I know that is a common struggle. One, as a blogger, I cannot even tell you how many times I personally, or people that I know, other blogger friends, will take a photo, and if you were to turn half an inch, all of their junk is in a pile on the floor.
That's
and
true.
so it's just, I know we say it so often, it's so cliche, but really what you see is not what you get in
It's true.
regards to the internet and all that you're envisioning. But
Yeah.
when we see a home that we want, I fully agree with Lenya in that when we're discontent, our husband takes that on his shoulders, oftentimes if you're married, and he feels this need to continue working, to do more, be more, and what that will create is a resentment
Yes.
in his heart. And I think of the parable in the book of Matthew where there's a landowner and he has a vineyard and he has workers who come early in the morning and they agree to the wage. And he says, let's say 50 cents, you're getting paid 50 cents today to work all day. And they say, great. And then a few more workers he sees and he said, they come at 9 o'clock and he says, I'll pay you 50 cents. And they say,
I
great.
love
So they
this.
go to work. And then at 3 o'clock, he says, I need more workers. I'll pay you 50 cents. And they say, great. All of them were happy with what they had. They were content with the blessings that they
The
had been
contract they
handed.
made,
Yeah. But as soon as they all found out that everyone was making the same wage for different amounts of time, they became discontent.
That's right.
And that is how we live. We can be content when we see tunnel vision
Until you
in
go to
front
the
of
mall,
us.
until you're
Right.
watching a movie,
As
until
soon
you're
on
as we
Instagram,
avert
yeah.
our eyes at someone else's life, when we can't celebrate them for their success, when we try to steal their success, when we try to elevate ourselves because we want, we then are unhappy. We're discontent. And I think our lives, we strive to live in joy. We
Yes.
strive to live in contentment. And yet it's almost like we sabotage ourselves by peering in. And obviously we talk about social media does not make this easy.
I want to say something to Daisy
Yeah,
as
go
well.
for it.
Daisy, if you look at the apostles or you look at characters in the Bible, they all had different personalities.
Yeah.
And so be happy with the one he gave you. And, even James and John were the sons of thunder, right? And at one point they said to Jesus, their mom, can they sit on the right and left hand side of God? They were already one of the 12, right? They were
Wasn't
the
enough.
posse, man.
Right?
They were in the posse. They were one of the 12. And they're like, can I be that one and that one? And then Peter one time compared himself because Jesus said that John was going to live a long time. And then in John 21:21, when Peter saw him, he said to Jesus, what about that man? What about John? And Jesus said to him, if it is my will that he remains until I come, what is that to you?
Right.
Follow me.
That's right.
And so Jesus was even saying,
Love that.
perspective check. What I do with John is what I'm
None
going
of
to do
your
with
business.
John.
Yeah.
And then again, John was sent to Patmos.
Right?
And John had to be carried from place to place as in his old age. And my dad always says, only the good die young. Because, maybe being old's overrated. I don't know. But I don't want to be carried place to
Right.
place. I don't want to be wheeled place to place.
Yeah.
So don't compare yourself with someone else. They're running their own race.
Right. That's
Yeah.
right.
And stop counting everybody else's blessings. Start counting your own.
Amen.
You know,
That's right.
look at
Amen.
what God has given you. We have quite a few people chiming in. One gal, Holly, wants to know if there are any books that will encourage her to stay motivated, maybe direct her to prayer if you guys have any recommendations.
Lindsay will put that on our All the Things podcast
say, I have
later.
a list.
I was
Perfect.
going to walk over to Sopo, and Sopo's open again. So if you want to go to Solomon's Porch and or the bookstore, you can. And I was going to go in there and try and cull a couple of those too. So
awesome.
love you for the question, and we'll try and post it later.
And then, how do you ladies practice praying over your husbands and being their motivators?
For me personally, I have learned a lot, but
I'm learning.
Yes,
Right.
I am learning. With this, just as we're talking about championing one another,
Yes.
that the more that I champion my husband, the more
You
that he
succeed.
strives to do good.
right.
The more that I tear him down and criticize those little things here and there, or make passive aggressive comments, or tell other people about his faults, that he begins maybe to live in those a little bit more.
Right.
But when you lift them up, call them up, praise them
That's
up,
right.
Yeah.
it it speaks volumes. And so for me personally, when we pray at the dinner table, dinner is really big for us in our home. When we pray at the dinner table, I pray for my boys' dad. I let them know, I let them see what it means to have a wife who pursues God above her husband, who pursues God for her husband,
right.
and who strives to have a heart where he's lifted up in our home, and then they can see that he struggles as well. So we'll pray for the struggles that he's facing and just pray over him and his work. And I always thank God, thank you that, because they always say like, Daddy's always working, you know, Daddy's gone, and for me, I explain to them regularly, he is working so he can provide all these things. So Lord, thank you so much that Daddy is able to work for our family
right.
and provide for our
Right.
home. So I think in your prayer, seeking God in that, but also championing your husband in front of your family and out loud will not only change your heart toward him,
That's right.
but will change his heart as well.
Yeah.
I think it's important too. A book that I've read, 800 times, and I probably still need to continue reading it. 5 Love Languages.
We were at a thing
So
together.
good.
Yes,
When
because
that
we
was
need to
being
know
taught.
how our
Yes.
husbands feel loved. Because
Yes.
you can be married to a guy that's like, yeah, great. It's nice that you compliment me all the time, but I don't really care.
Yeah.
I really just want you to pick up your shoes off the floor. You knowing what
each other.
feeds your husband, I think is really. My husband, it is
Words of affirmation.
Words of
Right,
affirmation, and he loves being encouraged, and so for me, he's very successful in the line of work that he does, and he likes to be encouraged in that, but he really loves it when he's home, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it was so sweet. Johnny said that my son just wrote this paper, his final paper for school, he's in 4th grade, on who his favorite person is that inspires him, and it was his dad. And he was the only kid in his class that wrote about his dad. And I told my husband, I was like, you've got to hear this. And that,
Fills him.
for my
Yeah.
husband, it was like, oh my goodness, because he does feel guilty for working a lot, or, and my husband doesn't work nearly as much as he used to, but there's still, our guys feel guilty about being away from the home.
Yeah.
It's not something
would
they
prefer
like
to
to
be with
do.
their
Her
family.
husband does homeschooling.
He
and
does.
science
He's
and stuff,
amazing.
so.
He is.
So the 5 love languages
Yes.
are acts of service, words of affirmation, affection or touching,
Yeah.
gift giving,
Yes.
and what did I miss?
Acts of service.
Acts of service, gift giving, words of affirmation, quality time.
Quality time.
touch.
Clearly, quality time's not mine, because I couldn't even remember it. But Janae, do you have any other comments or?
Oh, to add in?
Yeah, no, from our
Oh,
listeners.
it's hard to see. Again, they're
It's
not
stuck
showing up
again.
here. It likes to freeze on us. But over
This one right
here
there.
we got Howdy
got the-
Ladies.
we just did
Oh,
that
we did that
one,
one.
yeah.
Okay.
kidding.
Well,
We'll
you
just
guys
keep
keep
pushing.
engaging.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine, and we can move on to our next question. So, this is something I want to talk about, because I think once we get into a perspective of why envy is not wanted for us, it helps us to battle what that envy is. And so the Bible tells us what love is and what love isn't.
That's good.
And 1 Corinthians says love does not envy.
It's good.
And you shall not covet. And so
right.
why does God want us away from that? He's careful to caution us with what love is and what it isn't, because he wants the best for our lives, but ultimately he wants us to honor him. So my question to you all is, how are love and envy two conflicting emotions, maybe for you personally, and what does envy do to you that causes you to not love, and how can you reconcile that?
I would say envy, it's poison, genuinely, and it is sin, but it doesn't it's not, think of it as, even if it's a little drop of food coloring, and it is going
good.
to taint everything.
good.
As
Yeah.
soon as
Yeah.
you push
good.
one little drop into that clear water, it taints it, and it's no longer clear and pure. And so it does that in all areas. I feel like if it seeps in one area, it's going to seep in other areas, and on top of that, it's going to pour out onto my family and my husband and my relationships. And so I genuinely have to battle it just mentally, and just really say, like, no, that's not for you. It's kind of like hushing the enemy,
Right.
like telling myself, like, that is from the enemy, that is a lie. I don't need to believe it. And if I can even be really frank and honest with Nate. If I am struggling in something and I need someone to be like, get a pat on the back or like, dude, you're fine. Stop. You know, like stop comparing. So I think for me, is it, I guess, worth allowing it to seep in every area of my life and taint my family. And
so not wanting to call out. We in Sheology, we have a thing that we don't call out, we call up.
There you go.
That's right.
And so we don't like to call out bad behavior, but call up to better behavior. And so that's always good. And comparison to me, or envy, antithesis of love, shows how immature you are.
Right.
It really does.
Right.
Because we want our husbands to love us and pat us on the back. But ultimately, God's opinion is the most important
right.
opinion.
Yeah.
That's right.
And if we become man pleasers and we're trying to either please our parents or our peers or somebody else, you've got the wrong target.
That's right.
Right.
And so ultimately, God's opinion is the most important opinion because, frankly, there's a lot of women out there that their husbands don't build them up.
That's right.
And they're unequally yoked. And they don't have a pat on the back. They have someone who's severe and constantly raising the bar and feel it's unattainable. But God doesn't look at you that way.
Nope.
Right.
God sees you differently. And so for those women, God has to be
That's right.
that importance in their life. And I found in Scripture, Peter addressed this, and Paul. He said, "But brothers, I could not address you as spiritual people, but as people of the flesh, as of infants in Christ. I fed you with milk, not solid word, for you not ready for it. And even now you're not ready, for you are still of the flesh. For while there is jealousy and strife among you, you are of the flesh and not behaving properly in a human way." So when I'm in that spot, I feel like God's going, you, my friend,
That's right.
need to knock it off. You're being a baby and you're misbehaving, and I have greater things for you. I have more for you. You can have milk, but I've got a steak. And if you want to keep drinking milk and you want to
Go
act
for it,
like
yeah.
a little baby, I'll put you to bed with a bottle and I'll give you a little nookie, but he has something much better
That's right.
for you. And so raising the bar to a higher, you have a higher call.
That's right.
You have a higher place to be. We want to call you up, not out. God has so much more for you. Get
right.
over the things. When I was a child, I thought as a child, I behaved as a child, but when I became a woman, I let aside childish things, and that's how 1 Corinthians ends.
Yeah.
Right.
It says, look, love is the better way, and if you learn the way of love, then you're learning the way of maturity and putting Christ and the Lord
That's
first.
right.
That's good.
For me, it's choice. It really is. It's a choice that I choose, that I make. And if I'm, and it's funny because you're talking about being analytical. I'm one of those people that I'm like, what's the root of this? First of all, why am I so envious of this particular person? Is it truly because I want to be them? Is it I want to be like them?
Right.
Because really, or am I just completely dissatisfied with where I am right
Yes.
now?
Well, and sometimes it's like you pick one portion of
Exactly.
their life you wish
Yeah.
you had, and then you want to nitpick out of different people's
Exactly,
lives. Yeah.
exactly. Like I'm going to make this, Barbie doll of a person.
Yeah.
But for me, so what I did, and this is how it started for me, was I went, okay, I feel horrible when I'm envious of someone or I'm comparing myself. I feel there is absolutely nothing that satisfies me. Nothing. My husband could bring me home my favorite Ben & Jerry's. He can rub my feet. He can do whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm not happy with him. I'm not happy with
By the way,
anyone.
my husband never rubs my feet.
That wasn't an
Let's not even go there.
I'm sorry.
But it's true. But
Go
I know, huh? Wait a minute. But for me, it was going, okay, how do I feel after I've commented on someone? You go, girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You feel
That
better.
fast.
Yeah.
I'm
It's
like,
freedom.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my goodness. I am genuinely happy for this person. Why can't I
Yes.
say it?
Yes.
Why do I have to choose?
Yes.
Oh, must be nice. Why?
know,
I have a
why?
choice.
There is a book, and I cannot recall the name right now, but
you'll find it and
I
post
will.
it.
I'll post it. It was so good for me because, as I said, with success, it can be hard for me. But it said, as I kind of mentioned before, that if you are unable to praise someone for all
Says
that
a lot.
God is doing in their lives, you are in a place where you you really need to dig deep to
That's
that
right.
root.
That's
And just
right.
like you said, Michelle, it makes you feel horrible. And Proverbs 14:30 says, a heart at peace gives life to the body, but envy rots the bones.
Yeah.
And comparison opens the door for sabotage. So we touched a little bit on marriage, but I think even in friendship, when you lose that
Right.
peace and you find yourself beginning to withdraw because you're not content with the relationship that you have with them because they lost 30 pounds or they're doing really big things or their marriage is thriving, you will sense the dissension between love and envy because your envy is pulling you away from the love of that friendship.
That's right.
True.
And you're going to wreck your friend. And
gonna
I
destroy
can
it.
speak to this. I have wrecked friendships in the past because I struggled so much and was unwilling to lay down my pride and to make less of myself and more
That's right.
of Jesus. And
So good.
in my destruction that I walked in for a long season, I was able to come to a place now where, not that it doesn't come, because it comes and it comes on strong for me, but it's the same as Michelle, where it's a decision where you say, I have the choice right now to walk away from this and throw my phone because I'm mad.
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Right.
And then go complain to my husband. Or I can say, you're amazing, and then reach out. I have one friend, I want to use her as an example because she's just incredible. She's a Christian therapist, but she does the same thing as I do. She has a podcast, and she'll always reach out and she'll just say, girl, how are you doing this? Or what's going on? How are you doing whatever
Throw
it might
you a
be?
bone, right?
Yeah, it's just, how's this going? Tell me. How did you do it? And I'm like, oh, I appreciate that so much. Just the upfront question. And as we referred to before, just having the ability to be open and to lay down our pride and say, I want that. Can you help me? Can you help me get there? Instead of allowing a root to grow.
And let me say for Sheology, because a lot of you are turning in, this is Calvary and it's for the women's ministry in Sheology. We want you to know there is not a socioeconomic factor that makes you a part of Sheology. There is not an educational factor. There is not, you have to be sweet, Daisy. It doesn't mean you have to be, you don't have to be a church lady to come to Sheology, right? There is no litmus test like, oh yeah, she can be in Sheology.
Yeah, I know.
So you need to be involved in any way you can.
That's
We're
right.
praying that we'll be booting back up in July, and so we'd love you to be a part of it. It doesn't matter what age you are, single, married, widowed. None of those things are important. And ladies, that's the problem why we compare, and sometimes we
right.
won't come join women's ministry
Right.
because
That's
we
right.
think they're not like me.
That's right.
I'm going to be different than them.
Or they have it all together,
Right.
which is always the biggest
Yeah.
lie.
Well, and I think that's what also another important, sliver to all of this is I think we need to be willing to listen to people's stories. You were talking about, are you willing to sacrifice the things that you have to have what this person has? We need to be available to listen to people's stories. In Sheology, we do that. We have the friendship thing where we'll sit and we'll listen to people's stories. We welcome folks. We want to talk to you. We want to hear where you came from. We want to hear what's happened to you.
Yes.
What made you think this, or why do you feel this way? We want to be there and we want to walk with you. It's not just a matter of just come and hear.
validate and
That's
promote.
Right.
We want not only to hear your story,
That's
but other
right.
people can hear your story.
That's right. We want to
and
encourage
connect.
you.
Absolutely.
We want to uplift you, and we want you to know that you're not an accident.
That's
What's
right.
happened in your life is
That's right.
not an accident.
That's
And
right.
you don't need to measure up to
right.
Sheology ladies, to Lenya, to Lindsay, to Janae, to me. We're all four of us. I mean, if you listen to all of our testimonies, they're probably like night and day.
mess.
Yeah, and probably night and day.
Yeah.
I mean, my testimony's not the down in the gutter. So the reality is, we need to all be willing to listen and appreciate where people come from, and know that people work hard to get what they have, and we should celebrate that. We should encourage people to work hard and to do well.
Yeah.
And I think the long and short of it is the enemy wants you to
That's right.
compare. It not only pulls you away from your physical relationships here, but it pulls you away from the Lord.
It isolates
Right.
you.
It-
for
it
sure.
isolates
because
you.
you
That's
have
right.
that discontentment,
Yeah.
and you feel like maybe the Lord's not blessing you, or whatever it might be that you push away from Him, and really He just wants to pour out blessing on your
right.
life over and over and over again, but you're so consumed with what you don't have that you don't realize that you are isolating yourself. You're pulling yourself away from the Lord. You're pulling yourself away from those meaningful relationships that you have in your life that you should be cultivating, that you should be pouring into, because we know this, it says it in Scripture, but as you pour out, the Lord pours back in. And so you're overflowing when you're pouring out. When you try to hoard what little you have and then compare what you don't have, that water becomes stagnant.
That's stinky.
Yes.
And can I just say this? His kingdom is an upside down kingdom.
That's right.
Where the foolish things of this world confound the wise. The weak confound the strong. The poor, can instruct the rich. So the meek inherit the earth, not the greedy. And so, you have it all backwards. Sometimes you can have it just all backwards. And when we humble ourselves, He exalts us.
That's right.
So everything's completely backwards.
Yeah. And that comparison oftentimes can create an anger in people's hearts. And just like we're talking about getting up close and personal with people at the church, or getting involved in a women's ministry if you live out of state, just having those relationships will cause your heart to rid of that anger and to be filled with peace, because we've said this on our Instagram account actually, but it's difficult to hate someone up close.
That's right.
And so when you see them on Instagram and you kind of hate that they have all these things, when you listen to their story and you're willing to hear their heart, it changes your heart. I want to read this prayer. I have it up in my closet, and it is so good. And it's just, it will wreck you in the best way. Oh, Jesus, meek and humble of heart, deliver me. Deliver me from the desire of being esteemed, from the desire of being loved, from the desire of being extolled, from the desire of being honored. Deliver me from the desire of being praised, from the desire of being preferred to others. Deliver me, Lord, from the desire of being consulted or approved, or from the fear of being humiliated. Deliver me from the fear of being despised, or of suffering rebukes, or of being calumniated. From the fear of being forgotten, from the fear of being ridiculed, from the fear of being wronged, and deliver me from the fear of being suspected. That others may be, I pray, that others may be loved more than I, that others may be esteemed more than I, that in the opinion of the world, others may increase and I may decrease, that others may be chosen and I set aside, that others may be praised and I unnoticed, that others may be preferred to me in everything, and that others may become holier than I, provided that I may become as holy as I should. And it is powerful.
Now everybody needs that in their closet.
Yeah.
Right? How can we post that?
I can create a printable.
Okay,
and we can
you guys
post
need to
it,
print that and post it.
We can put it in our Instagram stories. It's Instagram allthethings.podcast. Follow along. But we have just a few minutes left, and so I want to close out with like an actionable item. So one thing that I shared on my own personal account recently is she doesn't do it better, she just does it. And I think we can spend a lot of time envying the success of others or the changes in others' lives, but we allow their success to hinder us from actually making that goal because we think, I'll never get there. It's worthless. So this is a tactic, I believe, that the enemy uses strongly to say, I'm never going to get there, so I won't take the first step. Because she's just better than me and has it all together. So let's talk about how we can move forward or how our listeners, watchers can move forward in their lives in the struggle of comparison right now by taking those first steps.
Ooh. Applaud others.
Yes.
Yeah, it's good.
Affirm others. And why don't you repost something someone else said? Instead of focusing, will you repost me or will you look at me? Like I love that Michelle does Run Mama Run. And she's working hard at building a podcast for that. Run Mama Run podcast. And so instead of me saying, look at me, I want you to look at Michelle.
It's
good. And I want you to see the race that she's running. I want you to listen to her podcast because her voice has a unique approach at what's happening. So can we just, ladies, what a beautiful world it would be if women would applaud and affirm one another.
Yes, I agree. And the differences are beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes.
The differences are beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's not even necessary, because I joke a lot of, hey, I'll buy the same shoes you're wearing. I don't care. I'll tell you about it next week. But the reality is it's okay. It's okay to be different. It's all right. And we are fearfully and wonderfully made. And I liken it to, we go to Walmart and we pick up our mom jeans, and everybody has the same mom jeans, but God has the unique mom jeans that fit me, that are
By the way, mom
Giorgio
jeans
Armani.
don't look good on everyone.
Right, exactly. But the point is that we're all paying $20 to get one thing that everybody
Mom
has.
jeans are overrated.
I love mom jeans.
Right?
Yes, but
We have like the unique Giorgio Armani or whatever, the
Yeah.
unique one pair that God has given us, and let's appreciate those and let's live in those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would just say, don't be discouraged, but be inspired
Yeah.
by what others are doing, and just striving after, because you can have those goals, and you just need to. For me, with running, I always have like a visual finish line in a sense, but it's not a finish line. It's like, hey, I'm going to get to that stop sign. I'm not going to stop until I get to that stop sign. I make
walk
these
with
visual
girls,
things.
and the girls always go, if you don't touch that sign, Janae won't be happy. You have to actually touch it before you can turn around.
Just because somebody's reached a finish line doesn't mean you can't set those lines, those goals, those shorter goals, and take that next step and be inspired where they've come and where they've gone, and you can be there too. You just have to take the first step and give yourself a line and a goal, and celebrate those things.
That's right.
Celebrate the accomplishment of I got here. Now I'm going to press on to another mark.
That's good.
That's right.
Thank you. Well, thanks for joining Girl Talk. We will see you guys next time. That was quick cut off.